GPT-5.6 Sol, Qwen 3.8, and MiniMax M3 all claim they belong at the top of the coding agent stack, and we ran the actual benchmarks, pricing, and speed tests to find out which one backs that up. The biggest surprise, GPT-5.6 Sol posts a 96.2% on SWE bench verified, the kind of number that gets repeated as proof it's the undisputed coding leader. But Qwen 3.8 actually beats it on OS World verified, 86.1% to 83.2%, which means agentic real-world computer use is a completely different fight than the headline coding score suggests. Pick the weaker reasoner for a coding agent, and you're the one debugging its mistakes at 2 a.m. So this test starts with Goldie Bench, a fixed task suite that ran 50 tasks against GPT-5.6 Sol, 45 against Qwen 3.8, and 47 against MiniMax M3, all under single evaluator scoring. GPT-5.6 Sol comes out on top at 8.16 out of 10, with Qwen 3.8 close behind at 8.10 and MiniMax M3 trailing at 7.97. That's a marginal win, not a blowout, and it matters because it tells you these three aren't wildly far apart on general capability. Where the gap actually opens up is on the specialized benchmarks. On GPQA Diamond, according to official docs on Vellum's leaderboard, GPT-5.6 Sol scores 94.6%. Neither Qwen 3.8 nor MiniMax M3 has a published figure for this one, so we're not going to pretend there's a number to compare against. That's an honest gap, not a loss for the other two. SWE Bench Verified is where GPT-5.6 Sol pulls away hardest. It scores 96.2%, officially documented. Qwen 3.8 has no published SWE Bench Verified score at all. A gap that size, 96.2%, against an unverified 80.5%, is a real signal that GPT-5.6 Sol is built and tuned specifically for structured coding tasks in a way the other two haven't demonstrated yet. GPT-5.6 Sol wins this test clean. That puts GPT-5.6 Sol at 1, Qwen 3.8 at 0, and MiniMax M3 at 0. One of the biggest problems I run into when using AI agents is turning their output into YouTube content I can actually use to market my product. That's why this video is sponsored by Subscriber, a tool that helps business owners connect their AI agents to YouTube and market their products without spending 10 hours every week creating content. You can connect Claude or ChatGPT directly to Subscriber. It then analyzes your business, website, and YouTube channel to help you create SEO-optimized video ideas, scripts, thumbnails, and even complete videos that actually match your brand. What I like most is that every week, Subscriber gives me a list of high-potential video ideas I can immediately execute, and it can even help edit videos for me, with or without my face, including videos like the one you're watching right now. It's easy to get started, and you can try Subscriber for free using the link in the description below. Now back to the video. But raw reasoning power on a fixed benchmark suite doesn't tell you what happens when an agent actually has to operate a computer, click buttons, and complete multi-step tasks in the real world. MiniMax M3 comes in at roughly 80.5%, but that number is community reported, not vendor confirmed, so treat it as directional. So GPT-5.6 Sol takes reasoning and problem solving, and the scoreboard shifts its way. My name is Brian, and I spend most of my week digging through AI products, benchmarks, APIs, and pricing pages to figure out where these tools actually differ. A model that reasons brilliantly on paper, but can't reliably operate a desktop environment breaks the entire promise of an autonomous coding agent. This is where the story flips. On OS World Verified, the benchmark that measures actual computer use tasks, Qwen 3.8 scores 86.1%, and GPT-5.6 Sol scores 83.2%. Tool call success rate tells a similar story, though there's no standardized published figure for any of the three models here. This is a directional call built from community consensus, not a hard number, and I want to be upfront about that. Community reports consistently favor Qwen 3.8 for agentic reliability and tool use robustness, which lines up with its OS World Verified lead. MiniMax M3 has no published figure for either metric in this category, so it sits out this round entirely. Qwen 3.8 takes this test. That puts GPT-5.6 Sol at 1, Qwen 3.8 at 1, and MiniMax M3 at 0. Speed is next, and it's about to separate all three by a wide margin. That's a nearly 3-point lead for Qwen 3.8, community reported, but independently measured against the same task suite, and it directly contradicts the assumption that the SWE bench leader automatically wins every coding-adjacent benchmark too. The scoreboard is tied at the top, and it's a real reminder that a benchmark leader in one category can lose the exact category that matters most for autonomous agent work. A model that reasons well but takes over 2 minutes to respond breaks the flow of any real agentic workflow, especially one chaining multiple calls together. On raw throughput, MiniMax M3 puts out 82.8 tokens per second, and GPT-5.6 Sol runs at 61.7 tokens per second, according to community-reported hands-on throughput tests. That's MiniMax M3 running roughly 34% faster on raw output generation, a gap you'd actually feel in a long agentic session generating a lot of text. Time to first token is where the difference gets dramatic. GPT-5.6 Sol at max reasoning effort can take up to roughly 154 seconds before it produces its first token. MiniMax M3 answers in 1.57 to 1.65 seconds. Qwen 3.8 has no published figure for either throughput or time to first token, so it doesn't factor into this test at all, another honest absence rather than an invented number. MiniMax M3 wins this test decisively. That puts GPT 5.6 Sol at 1, Qwen 3.8 at 1, and MiniMax M3 at 1. Every product now has a win, and the next test is where the gap between these three stops being about milliseconds and starts being about your actual monthly bill. That's not a small gap, that's the difference between a model that feels instant and one that feels like it's stalled. Stick with me, because the last 4 tests are where this decision actually flips. Run the same coding job through all 3 models every day for a month. On pricing per token, MiniMax M3 pulled clearly ahead once the workload got real. Run the same coding job through all 3 models every day for a month. Next up is multimodal capability and vision, the test that quietly decides whether the rest of this comparison even matters. On multimodal capability and vision, MiniMax M3 pulled clearly ahead once the workload got real. So MiniMax M3 takes multimodal capability and vision, and the scoreboard shifts its way. Here is where GPT 5.6 Sol clearly pulls ahead of the field. Now, here's where Qwen 3.8 clearly pulls ahead of the field. Here is where MiniMax M3 clearly pulls ahead of the field. Pick the one whose single biggest strength matches the job in front of you today. One thing the docs never spell out will quietly cost you if you miss it. If this helped, the next breakdown on the channel goes even deeper.